Hi, I'm Kathy Johnson. Welcome to Town Talk. I have with me today a person that is a real life beekeeper. I have a real beekeeper with me today. His name is Scott R. Priori, and he's with Little Bee of Connecticut. And he's here today to talk to us about beekeeping, the honey bees make, and information about bees. So we're going to start the show right now, and I'm going to welcome you. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I appreciate the opportunity.
Can you give us a little background as to whatever made you want to be a beekeeper?
So, about 3 or 4 years ago, my family and I, we were in upstate New York, and we stopped for lunch in a little town up there, and just outside the place we had lunch, there was a little farmer's market, and people were selling vegetables, meats, and there was this one gentleman there. He had a booth, and he was selling honey, and one of the things that attracted me to that was he had an observation hive. It was a beehive, and behind it were, the bees were behind panels of glass, so you could see the bees in their natural state. And one of the things that they like doing is, kids or even the adults come up and you try and find the queen bee. So I brought my daughter up, and we were looking for it, and we found it, and I had a conversation with this gentleman. Thought, how did you get involved with beekeeping? And, it was just a quick 5-minute conversation about it, and he was telling me how he became a beekeeper, and, it sparked my interest.
Well, that's interesting. Isn't it funny how when you, some of the least things that you would ever think about in life, they just grab your psyche,
Mm-hmm.
and that grabbed you right there. Now, right after that experience, how soon did you decide you were going to invest and have a little business? And did you kind of forget it at that point, or did you just move forward?
I've kind of forgot about it. We talked about it a little bit on the car ride home, but then it kind of, weaned off from there. But for Christmas that winter, my mother-in-law, she actually bought me a book called Backyard Beekeeping.
Oh.
And, she had heard that, I was thinking about it, and I read the book, and that really piqued my interest. And then what finally set it off was in the local newspaper Voices, there was an advertisement for a beekeeping class being held up at Flanders Nature Center in Woodbury.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
it was going to be starting the following weekend. So I decided, I was going to go up there. It was for 3 days, 1 day a week, and I took it, and I really enjoyed it. And so after that point, I enrolled in a larger beekeeping course that's being held by same place at Flanders Nature Center by a gentleman named Kevin Barry, who is a gentleman who lives in Woodbury, and he's a beekeeper. So I took that course, and after the first couple of classes, I really enjoyed it, and I went out and I purchased my first beehive and set it up and enjoyed it, and it just spawned from there.
Oh, I can imagine what an exciting day that was, like putting up a new Christmas tree or
absolutely.
something. Yeah, I can imagine that. So now, how long have you been keeping bees?
This is going on, this spring will be my 4th year.
4 years.
Yeah, so not a long time. I'm by no means, an end-all, be-all expert, but, I've done my research, and I've been, working on my own hives, and I've had a great success rate with the hives I've had, and this spring we'll actually be adding 3 more beehives to our collection.
Yes, that was going to be now. How many do you have?
Right now we have 3 beehives and 1 observation hive, so we like to bring that hive so people can see the bees in their natural state and observe them without being worried about being stung. And then we'll be adding 3 more. Once the temperatures warm up, we can start expanding those beehives.
Now, do you worry about being stung? Do you cover yourself?
Yeah, I cover myself in a beekeeper's jacket. The pants I can wear just regular jeans. I've never been stung through my pants, but I still wear a veil. I still wear gloves. Just because, I don't want to be stung too many times.
No, I don't blame you.
There are people out there that beekeep without anything on. I've seen people that beekeep without shirts on, and they do fine. I'm not at that point, nor do I think I ever will be.
Well, to be safe is, maybe you wear your seatbelt, but you never expect you're going to have a car accident.
Exactly.
So, you know,
Exactly.
I can see your point. Now, there are a lot of people out there who are interested in not, we'll get to the products and what is wonderful about honey and all that, but some people are very interested on the actual how the bees go about what they do and what a beekeeper does. Would you like to touch on that at the moment?
Beekeeping really as a hobby, for the most part, it's a very hands-off hobby. The bees are going to do what they do naturally. I mean, they are a very communal group. You have your queen bee who lays all the eggs, and then you have your workers, which are all females. They take care of all the work in the hive. And then you have your drones, which are the males, and they're just there to eat and reproduce. So you can laugh at all you want there, but the males have one specific purpose, but the majority of the hive is all female worker bees, and they take care of all the jobs. They take care of preparing, building the honeycomb. They take care of collecting the nectar to create honey. They take care of raising the baby bees, cleaning out the cells, cleaning up the hives. So they do everything in there that pertains to, taking care of the hive in a day-to-day situation. So, being a beekeeper, all you're doing is, every week or every 2 weeks, what my job is, I go into the hive, and what I'm looking to make sure that everything inside that hive is okay. So there's, before I go into a hive, I kind of have a mental checklist of the different things that I'm looking to see as soon as I go in there, because I don't want to be in there too long. You'll disturb the bees. The bees will start to get angry.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm looking for, I want to open up the hive. I want to make sure that I see that they're bringing in nectar, make sure that they're bringing in pollen, and then I want to make sure that I see signs that the queen is laying eggs and that those eggs are developing and are in the different stages of development, and make sure I see new bees hatching, and just be on the lookout for anything that's out of the ordinary. So my job is just to take care of, make sure that the hive looks to be functioning normally, and if I see a problem, I work to try and correct that, whether it's...
So it's like a doctor, do no harm.
Exactly.
And don't overstay your visit. Yeah, that's a very good thing. Would you like to show us how bees, some of your props here? Would you like to get into that part of it?
Sure,
so
absolutely.
People see how what the hives look like, etc.
Absolutely. So over here, what we have, this is a one box of a beehive, and inside there'll be 10 of these frames. And
is that the major box you talked about, the hive? What
Yes.
was the first? That's the big hive.
yeah, so
It's called the...
So there's different size boxes, and these are, they're called deeps, which are where they're the larger boxes. That's where the bees live and take care of themselves in there. This smaller box up here, this is where they would store their honey, or the excess honey, and that's where the beekeeper can go ahead and harvest that honey out.
Okay.
So what there'll be inside of this box is there's 10 of these wooden frames, and what you do is when you first start out with your hive, you don't start out with honeycomb, you start out with, pardon my reach, a frame like this. And this is just a wooden frame, and this is a sheet of beeswax with a honeycomb pattern
Does it have,
embossed on it.
do the bees need that little pattern?
They don't. You could actually put a regular wooden frame in a hive, and as long as the bees have accepted the hive, they will go ahead and build
Their
the
little-
honeycomb themselves. This just helps them on their way.
Okay.
And you would put this sheet on there and put it in, and the bees will go ahead, and the bees consume nectar, and out of that nectar, they can go ahead and secrete wax. And what they'll do is they'll go ahead and build up the honeycomb until it comes out looking like this frame.
Oh,
and you
look
can
at
see that
that.
the bees have built that out, and depending on where in the hive this is, this will either be used for honey storage or rearing young bees, and
Do the bees poke their little heads in those little...
Absolutely.
Is that their little house-like?
well, no, this is where they'll be born. So the bees will actually stay clustered all around these, but the queen will go ahead and stick her abdomen in each one of these, depending, as I said, depending on where in the hive it is. the queen bee will stick her abdomen in and lay an egg at the bottom. And then the worker bees will deposit what's called royal jelly, which is a substance that helps the bees develop. And then the nurse bees will go ahead and take care and feed those the larvae until they get to a certain stage. When they get to a certain stage, the worker bees will cap over each one of these with wax, and then the bee will stay in there to develop until it's ready to hatch. And then the bee, when it's ready, will go ahead and chew its way through the wax and will evolve as a newborn baby bee.
So the honey you collect would not have baby bees in it?
No, no. So
you aren't going to hurt the little baby bees?
No. So the honey that I collect is stored in a different section. That the way that you manage the hive, you ensure that while the queen could go up in that area and lay eggs, the way that you manage the hive, you can kind of put you can put either a natural barrier or a physical barrier that prevents the queen from going up into that area and laying eggs. So the honey will stay in its own section, so when you go to harvest it, you won't have any bees, contained within that honey.
Oh, I see. So the queen bee does have a little bit of a job, that she just doesn't sit around. She just doesn't sit around producing eggs. She's got to put them in the right place and all that.
Yeah, the queen will lay up to about 2,000 eggs in one day. That's all she does, day in and day out. She lays eggs. And the worker bees will sit there and attend to her. They will feed her, they will bathe her, so that she can go ahead and continue to improve the population of the hive.
No ego with those bees, is there?
No.
They do what nature tells them they should be doing.
They are a complete and total communal organism. And the bees know, based on communication signals, whether it's a pheromone that the queen gives off or the other bees, or the movement of the bees inside the hive, they will listen and understand and communicate with each other to know where to go to find nectar, where to go to find pollen. Another example is if the queen stops giving off a pheromone, the other bees know something's wrong with the queen, and they will go ahead and start raising a new queen. So they know everything about each other just by their own communication inside the hive.
It's too bad we humans can't live like that. Well, although we try.
Yeah.
Now, I'm looking at something that's very interesting looking. If you want to talk about it, we can, unless you want to go to something.
No, that's fine.
Well, that little can right there, that's caught my eye.
So this is what's called a smoker. And what you do is inside the canister here, you put something, some people put burlap, some people put pine needles, you can put wood shavings, and what this is used for, you ignite whatever your fuel source is in here, and you can squeeze the bellows here and it creates smoke. And what beekeepers use this for is it kind of keeps the bees in control when you open the hive. By spraying the bees with the smoke when you open it, it cuts off the pheromone signal that they're getting, and they smell the smoke, and they go into more of a self-preservation mode. Instead of worrying about what's going into the hive, they start saying the hive is on fire or there's a problem, and they will go ahead and they will start preparing to evacuate the hive. So they will crawl down into the hive, and they will start consuming honey that they can hopefully take out of the hive and bring to another location with them.
And that protects you.
That helps protect me, and that helps keep the bees a little bit more calm when I'm inside the hive.
Right.
And then once the smoke dissipates, just because they smell one puff of smoke doesn't mean the whole hive is going to leave. Once the smoke dissipates, they will go back to their regular business and not worry about what the smoke was. But it's just a way to help protect me and whoever is in the hive from being making the bees too aggressive.
I see. Now, I don't want to interrupt you in what you want to say, but I have a thought here. Can you tell us a little more about bees and how they survive, and what they do? Is there ever any more than one queen bee? Is there anything like that could possibly happen in a hive? And how are they? I'm watching and reading about monarch butterflies, and I'm also watching and reading about bees, and I'm understanding that there's some pollutants that may be affecting the bees. Is that so?
Bees are impacted by a lot of things, just as we humans are. So, whether it's air quality, whether it's water quality, it can be things like pesticides. Those are some of the big things that are impacting the bees today. So, they need, just like humans, they need clean air, they need clean water, they need you know food and so nectar and pollen sources that are not contaminated. So the big thing that is impacting bees, lately has been things like pesticides and pollutants, where just something as simple as you or I spraying something like Roundup. You see a dandelion in your yard, you spray Roundup on it, and you want the weed to go away because you want a beautiful green grass. Dandelions and a lot of these other weeds that people don't want, those are great nectar and pollen sources for bees. And by spraying these pesticides and other treatment options on these flowers, they impact the bees. The chemicals within them, what ends up happening is it impacts the nervous system of the bees, and they'll land on a flower or something that's been treated with some type of pesticide or herbicide, and they'll end up ingesting that. And what usually happens is, whether it's a lethal dose or it could be a smaller dose that just impacts the nervous system, which prevents the bees from finding their way home. Bees will fly out of their hive and will go 2 to 3 miles from the hive looking for a source of nectar or a source of pollen. So if they've consumed a pesticide or an herbicide, what ends up happening is they lose their orientation, they can't find their way home, and they never make it back to the hive. Or even worse, if they do make it back to the hive, the contaminants that are on the bees are now going to be spread to the other bees that are within the hive.
I'll bet that a lot of people, including myself here today, never realized this. Of course you want a manicured lawn and all that, but and unwittingly spoiling the bees' little world. I find that very interesting. These bees, are they different from the little ones that fly around your glass in the summer that they want is that the same bee?
No.
Or do we not see these? They seem to hide from us.
No, you'll see honeybees. So there are over 20,000 species of bees. Now, when people think bees, everyone thinks, when people think of bees, they're usually honeybees or bumblebees. Then you end up seeing, as you were saying, yellow jackets and wasps. They all get clustered into bees. And while they all are all different species of bees, the ones that are invading your summer picnics or flying in your drinks, most of the time those are not honeybees. Honeybees don't go for food. They don't usually go for your drinks. They prefer the flower nectar. What you usually have during those are usually yellow jackets or wasps or items like that. They tend to be a lot more aggressive than a honeybee. A honeybee, for the most part, will not sting you outside of the hive. I've gone, I can go ahead and mow my lawn. I can use a weed whacker around the hive, brush up against a bush, and the honeybees will just scatter and come back. The only time that they tend to be most aggressive is either when they're trapped or when you are invading their hive because they're trying to protect it.
I see. What advice would you give anyone watching the show right now that wants to get started on beekeeping and isn't quite sure which way to turn? What would be step one?
Step one, do your research. As I said, it's not a very complex hobby to get into. It really only takes maybe an hour or two a week for you to do, but you need to make sure that you're ready to take on the responsibility. I'm not going to say it's a challenge. It's really a responsibility because the bees. We need the bees, and the bees need to make sure that they're going to be taken care of in the proper manner. So what I would recommend first and foremost is do your research. Whether you buy a book, whether you research it, on the internet about getting started with bees. There are a lot of sources out there that you can rely on. If you know somebody who is a beekeeper, have a conversation with them about what it took them and what are their thoughts about getting into beekeeping. I'm really confident that all of them will say that's great. Beekeepers are always willing to share their knowledge, so they may even be willing to help you learn about bees by you being mentored in their own hive. So you can go with them to do their inspections. You can go with them, to learn more about bees. Step two, take your own class. As I said, right here locally at Flanders Nature Center in Woodbury, they have a couple great beekeeping classes. You don't have to commit to, having your own hive. You can just go, and they use the hives that are at Flanders Nature Center. So you can learn all about hives and what it takes to become a beekeeper. Everything from the equipment to, the anatomy of a bee to what it takes to take care of the bees all throughout the season, even into the winter, and how to take care of your bees over the winter.
That's interesting, and I want to touch on the spiritual aspect of beekeeping. Whenever we humans decide that we love horses, or we love literature, or we love public speaking, whatever, it does something for the soul. It's in that person. What is it? Is it joy you feel when you're a beekeeper? What is it that you feel either spiritually or in yourself that made you make this commitment? As you said, it's not a lot of time, but you can't forget you left your bees outside. Once you have said you're a beekeeper, you have to keep up with the process. So
for me, what really hooked me in after I took the course and I set up my first beehive, it was really about doing something good for an insect that is in danger. And I don't mean in danger that's an endangered species, but bee populations have been declining. And this is just something that I can do locally that not only is going to help the bees, it's going to help the people around me, because their flowers and their vegetable gardens and whatever, they're going to be pollinated, they're going to be taken care of, and everybody needs bees to survive. Without bees, a number of the different fruits and vegetables and flowers that we enjoy would just completely disappear.
Oh, really? They need the bees in other words, there's a certain vegetable you probably couldn't grow if there wasn't a bee around?
Nope, a number of them. The number is varied depending on who you look at, but between 60 to 80% of most of the vegetables that we consume would disappear without honeybees. Whole Foods put a picture out of our world with bees and our world without bees, and it's a picture of their produce section, and you can look it up. And they show the produce section today with oranges and apples and corn and lettuce and tomatoes and all these things, and then when you take the honeybees or they take the pollinators out, they show what's left, and over 2/3 of the store is empty. And it's all gone because those bees and pollinators have disappeared.
And there are people in this world that you'll never convince them that it just can't fix itself and we can move forward. But I always say, why take the chance? Why fix something that isn't broken right now? Why not leave it to nature? It's always worked like that. What I had another thought in my mind was, now, once you've established yourself as a beekeeper and you've decided that this is going to be your hobby or whatever your interest is going to lead you, now you have to collect that honey. And you have to do something with it. I mean, I suppose the first thing I think of is you eat it. But can we talk about how you collect it?
Sure.
And what you do with it after you collect it?
Okay. So typically, at least up here in the north, in a typical beekeeping season, there's usually 2 honey harvests, because we usually have an early bloom and then we have a second bloom later in August of the flowers that are native to this area. So you can usually have one harvest in usually the June timeframe and then another one in September. The way that you get the honey out is what we'll do is what I do is I put a special board on the hive, and what that is, it's a one-way exit for the bees. So when they're in the section where the honey is stored, I put that board on. The bees will go ahead and exit that, but because of the way it's designed, they can't get back in. So I put that on 2 to 3 days later. The bees they'll vacate that section. And then what I can do is I can take that entire box off and I can bring it into my workshop. And what I can do is I extract the honey from the frames. So just as I showed before, these cells will all be filled with honey and capped with wax. And then what I'll do is I'll take a knife and I'll slice off that top layer of wax on both sides. And then I'll take that, I'll put that down here. I'll take the frame that's been cut off, and I've got, basically it's a device that spins the honey out. So I put the frames in, I'll spin the crank, and then the honey will go ahead and be thrown out of that, and it'll be collected in a tank below. What I do at that point, I can either store it in a larger container, or I can put it right in the jars and get it ready for sale. What I do with my honey, all I do is I strain it through, basically it's a mesh strainer, similar to what you would use in your house for draining vegetables or anything like that. All that does, that removes any particles of wax from the honey. I don't heat treat my honey. I don't put it through any type of filter that will remove any of the pollen or any of the other elements of the honey, and so I can sell it as pure honey. It's never been doctored. It's never been altered, and that's one of the things that people love about local honey, is that it hasn't been doctored, and the pollen grains and everything about that honey is still contained in there. People with allergies, they swear by the consumption of local honey because it still contains traces of the pollen that's in the area, and just like when you get a vaccination, they typically inject you with a small amount of whatever that virus may be, and your body develops antibodies. Well, honey is pretty much the same way. You consume small amounts of that pollen, and it will help you be resistant to the pollens that are in the air.
Well, that's really very interesting. So, in a way, there's nutrition in off-the-shelf honey, but there's way more nutrition and more benefits from honey in its natural form. Are there different flavors of honey, or as you said, yours just comes right through as is? So.
There can be different flavors of honey. You've probably heard of orange blossom honey or clover honey,
yes.
Wildflower honey, and that all depends on where the beehives are kept. If you keep them in in orange groves or in fields of clover, the bees will go ahead and collect pollen nectar primarily from those sources, and that will flavor the honey to be that way.
I see.
Because I'm here in Southbury, I'm just surrounded by natural, the natural flora that's in the area. Mine is considered wildflower honey. I have no control over where the bees go. So you can go ahead and have that flavor, and you can claim that, but you really need to have acreage around you that contains whatever it is you're going to claim.
The flavor is going to be. So do you say that some batches of honey taste a little differently than other batches?
Absolutely.
But never taste bad, I'm sure.
No, and you can even notice a difference between your spring harvest and your fall harvest, because different flowers bloom in the spring and different flowers bloom in the fall.
Right.
So you'll notice a distinct difference between one batch and the other. It may just be one is lighter, one is darker. Again, it depends on the nectar and the pollen that they're pulling out of those flowers that are blooming at that time.
If I were to purchase your honey, would I know which was the fall? Do you let us know this would be our fall honey? Here, it's fall season. Try our fall honey.
We could. To be honest, we've been extracting honey. Last year was our first full year because the hives have to build up their populations before they can produce honey. They have to produce enough for themselves to survive the winter before I can take any off.
Sure.
So this past year was our first year of producing honey, and to be honest, we sold out of it in less than 2 hours. So I don't have any jars left to compare to next year.
Oh wow!
So there was such a demand for it when we first sold it at a Fall Fine Arts Festival here in Southbury, that it was gone within 2 hours.
Wow. People are more and more gravitating to the natural things to eat. You may not know the answer to this question, but as a mother, and I don't know there's mothers out there with little children, you're always told not to give babies honey. Can you comment on that in any way? If you can't, I understand, because that may not be your expertise, but have you heard that?
Yes, and there is a warning that we put onto our honey as well. You're not supposed to feed honey to children that are less than 1 year old. And the reason for that is that there is there can be a small trace of basically botulism within honey, and that can cause issues with children of less than 1 year. But after that, their immune systems are developed enough that the honey is no longer a danger to anyone that consumes it.
Now, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, and I don't expect you to answer this. It would be rhetorical, really, if you can't. But um, I was a nursing mother years ago before it was ever looked upon as something that was the greatest thing to do. It was in the 70s, and I was, I was a weird mother to a lot of people. But can a nursing mother eat honey?
I honestly don't know the
You
answer.
don't know that, okay.
So
I never
I
heard
don't-
we couldn't, but
Yeah, I've never heard anything that says that you can't, but I would
You wouldn't
recommend
be in-
talking to a physician before answering
before
that.
we talk about that, well, I think I did anyway. I don't remember anybody telling me I couldn't. So now we get to the point where what else can we do with honey besides eat it?
Well, honey is great in a number of different things. You can besides eat it, eat it straight. You can eat it with other foods. You can use it in recipes. People make remedies, for a sore throat. You can do honey and lemon. Honey and cinnamon blended. They say that that's great for, helping, with colds and sore throats.
Right.
You can blend it into other items. Some of the items that we've done with our honey, we've made honey and salt body scrubs that you can use, for dealing with, chapped hands, chapped heels.
Oh, really?
Things like
Really?
that.
You can get something like that from honey?
Yep, absolutely. There's our, hand creams, there are hand salves, there are things that you can make with the beeswax. You can make lip balms, you can make, again, you can make hand salves, you can make body creams. Honey is a great moisturizer as well. There is actually a strain of honey that comes out of New Zealand called Manuka honey. And what that is, it's a special strain of honey, and it actually contains a high level of antibacterial properties. So you can actually buy a product out there. It's called wound honey, and you can put it on cuts and scrapes and things like that. And it acts kind of like a Neosporin or any other type of first aid treatment.
That's very interesting. Now, I'm looking at the table here, and I see there's some examples of things you can do with honey. And is this the little lip balm right there?
Yep. This is one of our lip balms.
Yeah.
All of our products that we do, they contain, just natural ingredients, and they're basically beeswax, natural oils, and essential and fragrance oils.
Well, you know what? When I first saw your name, I happened to be in Southbury at the jewelry cafe, and I was walking around looking for some unusual gifts, and I happened to see your logo is very catchy.
Thank you.
But the reason I have the products on the table is I just want examples for our audience to see what can be done with these. Now I see there's a candle here. What are the benefits? Now this candle's interesting because I see it. It's made in like the look of the hive.
Yep.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So these are hand-rolled beeswax candles, and most candles that you see are poured. You just take melted wax, you pour them into a form. These actually are different in that we actually roll these out of the sheets of beeswax that you saw earlier that we put in the hive frames. So what we'll do is we'll take a cotton wick, and then we can start rolling those sheets of beeswax up. And if you look at the top, you can see how it's just a spiral pattern.
Yes, I'm noticing
This
that.
is just sheet after sheet
Just
of beeswax
around.
rolled together.
Unlike where you see people dipping candles.
Yeah, that's another way you can. I mean, you could melt the beeswax down. You could do a dipped candle. You could do a poured candle. These are just something that are unique that we really enjoy.
And do they burn well that way?
These burn really beautifully, and one of the things that we really enjoy about them is that as they burn, the outer layer of wax, the outer skin there, will actually stay there for about an inch or two and create a nice glow. And then as the candle continues to burn, it'll start falling in on itself, so you'll continue to have that nice, beautiful glow
So
throughout there.
it won't drip on the outside?
No.
It'll just go down to the middle?
Beeswax are dripless candles. They will continue to burn into themselves. And one of the great things about beeswax candles, they contain no petroleum. So your standard candles are typically made from a paraffin wax, which is a petroleum byproduct. These are made 100% natural from beeswax. There's nothing added. There's no artificial scents, no artificial colors. This is the natural wax as it comes out of the beehives.
Now, does the natural wax have a scent of its own?
It actually does. If you smell them, they smell a little bit of honey and beeswax, and it does give off a nice natural scent within your house.
Now, I see there's a different color around here. Is this artistic?
Yes, that's
artistic.
that's just decorative burlap that we put
That's
on there.
decorative burlap. This is interesting. And this jar right here, what is this?
This is our salt and honey body scrubs. So it's made from honey, olive oil, and Atlantic sea salt. And it's just a blend. You use that in your shower. As I said, rub it on your heels or your elbows, wherever you have dry skin, and it helps exfoliate your skin. It leaves a nice, smooth skin.
So this is an example of how you can wash your face with honey. Can you do your face with honey? It's
You
a
can.
scrub.
I wouldn't do it with the salt scrub, but there are other products out there that you can get that are beeswax based that provide good moisturizers.
Well, very, very, very interesting situation. Do some of your is there anything else you think that is very important for people to know about beekeeping and the products of bees that we haven't covered, Scott?
Again, bees are just really important to our society as a whole. The simple things that people at home can do are to help protect the bees. If you want to become a beekeeper, that's great. If you're not willing to make that commitment, just make sure that you've planted flowers and items that are attractive to bees. Instead of spraying that dandelion with Roundup, pluck it out of the ground. If you don't want it in your yard.
Does CO2? We talk about the carbon footprints and the sooty places and all kinds of fossil fuel pollutions and all. Does that affect the bees in any way?
Air quality is just as it impacts humans, air quality will impact the bees. I honestly can't speak directly to
that. You're not a scientist on that.
I can't say specifically that as CO2 levels go up, the bee populations decline. I can't say that with any certainty, but the bees need clean water, clean air, sunshine, just like us humans do.
Like everybody else does. Tell me a little something about your family.
Okay, so Little Bee of Connecticut, our business as a whole has only been around since last year. And we've been beekeeping for several years, but last year we decided to go into business. And the name Little Bee of Connecticut, it actually comes from our daughter. My daughter Alexa, she's 10 years old. But when she was a child, only just about a year old, somebody gave her a Winnie the Pooh toy. And it was Winnie the Pooh was holding one of those bubble poppers. And if you remember when you were a kid, you pushed them and down at the bottom as the wheels turned, the balls popped up inside of it.
Right.
So this was a Winnie the Pooh toy that, when you press the button, it would start scooting across the floor, and it had, little bumblebees in that little popper that would go, and it would say, "Little Bee likes to go, go, go." And our daughter would chase after this thing, giggling and laughing, and she developed the nickname Little Bee. And she loved to play with that toy, and even before we were beekeepers, she was always nicknamed Little Bee. And then, as it happened, we started, with beekeeping, and she really enjoyed it. She attended a lot of the classes with me to learn about bees. She loves helping me maintain the beehives when we harvest honey. She's out there with me helping to, turn the crank to extract the honey, help me to jar
She's
it.
not afraid to go in with the
nope,
bees. Does
nope.
she have her own little suit?
Yeah,
and
she
everything?
does. She has her own suit. She loves to go out there, and she loves to help with the bees.
Well, I met your daughter, Alexa, is it? Yes, I met Alexa, and of course as a grandmother of a granddaughter the same age, I connected with her immediately, and it's such a wonderful age, and so wonderful, and meeting your daughter was such a wonderful experience for me, and with your permission, I'd like to invite her up here.
Absolutely.
I would like to ask Alexa if she would come up and sit with her daddy. Please welcome Alexa, the person that her daddy named his bees after, Little Bee of Connecticut.
Yes.
Let me welcome you. Let me
Thank
welcome you. So, Alexa, would you like to tell us a little something about yourself? You go to school?
Yes, I go to Pomperaug Elementary School in Southbury.
Oh, Pomperaug, Southbury. That's our neighbor. I'm from Oxford. My little granddaughter is going to school in Beacon Falls right now. She used to go to Oxford, but then her parents moved out of Oxford, and she and her mommy are in Beacon Falls now. So she's enjoying that. I see you have a day off today. We better explain to people why you're here today.
Yeah.
What's a teacher day or something?
Yeah, it's a teacher day.
Oh, so they're going to conferences and all that. So being at Pomperaug, I guess you talk a lot about the environment and keeping things clean. But I want to ask you, how do you feel about being around the bees? Is it something that is fun for you?
I find it pretty fun, and I used to be a little bit tense around the bees, but after a while, I started to kind of loosen up around them. I even started naming them, even though it's impossible because there are thousands per hive.
I know, but you name your bees. I have to ask you something, Alexa. When you go into the hive, can you spot the queen bee? Do you know where it is usually? If you look around for it, can you see her?
If you look around for quite a bit, and if you look hard enough, she's bigger than all the other bees.
Is she a lot bigger?
Barely. The queen bee is about that long. Regular worker bees about that long.
So the queen bee could be like about an inch long,
yeah, she could grow up to about an inch.
About an inch, and then the other bees are like about half her size, maybe.
Yeah, maybe about half her size.
Yeah, and so have you named the queen bee? I must ask. I mean, I have a suggestion of what you can name your queen bee. You can name her after me, Kathy. I wouldn't mind at all. If you want to call the queen bee Kathy, I wouldn't mind at all.
Maybe we can do that with one of our new hives this year.
Yeah.
Name one Kathy.
The Kathy Queen bee.
Queen Kathy.
My husband says that he calls me Queen Catherine all the time. But anyway, now when you name your bees, is it absolutely possible for you to go in the hive and kind of, I know they all look alike, but can you recognize a bee if you've seen it twice? Is that possible at all?
It is possible, but you usually can't recognize that it's the one that you had seen.
Oh, I
They
see.
all look the same.
They
You
do.
might see the same bee twice, but you wouldn't know it's the one that you saw.
Isn't that interesting? Do you think that this will follow you the rest of your life? Do you ever foresee that you might do the same thing as your dad, maybe?
Yes, I was thinking about taking over the business once I graduated college.
Oh, well, then we could call it Little Bee and Daughter, right?
I
Possible.
Well, hey, I am a little bee.
or Priori and Daughter. Yeah. Well, no, that's wonderful. Do you have any other aspirations in your life? I mean, you're 10 years old and you're still studying, but do you have any interests that lead you toward animals or nature or anything like that, or anything other than that?
I definitely like lacrosse. I am wild about cats, and it turns out the entire family is wild about cats.
You love kitty cat. Oh,
yeah, we have to be
I
at
am
home.
so glad you brought that up because honestly, I'm attached to Grumpy Cat. I'm mostly a dog person, and I love horses. I've had a couple in my life, but I don't know. There's something about Grumpy Cat that I like. Now, tell me, what kind of cats do you have?
We have a American Shorthair. Her name is Maya. She is gray with a white belly and nose. She is extremely lovable and tends to scratch at my parents' dresser at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yes, I have two little dogs that at 4 o'clock in the morning, we said we'd never have a dog in a bed with us, but you know what, and they scratch like that. Is there anything that we left out about the bees that you were listening to your father? Is there anything from your eyes that you want to say about bees? You could think about that a minute.
I got something Daddy missed.
What?
Oh.
When winter comes,
Yes.
you know how only that about 95% of the hive are girl worker bees.
Yes.
The other 4% are drones, and then the last 1% is the queen.
Yes.
Well, in the winter, all the workers kick the boys out because all they ever do is just sit around and eat.
I love it. They throw them right out of the house. Huh?
Yep. Right
Oh
out.
my God, that was the best part of the beekeeping I've heard.
Don't worry, we don't throw him out.
Oh, well, no. You don't want to throw all the drones away. There's some special drones you keep around.
Yeah.
Well, and I also noticed that, when I was growing up, there was a thing we called women's lib. And women were starting to say that they could do more than stay at home. And I was thinking to myself, my mom used to say to me, Kathy, my mom was a historian, and she used to say to me, Kathy, I'm all for the women's lib, but women will never be liberated unless they liberate each other. And the lady bees are showing us that female bees can work together, and we females can certainly work together to make this world a lot better.
Worker bees.
The worker bees, yes, the worker bees. That's right. We are the worker bees, aren't we?
Yes,
We
of
are
course.
kind of like the honey and the glue that holds our families together.
I think I'm mostly the glue.
You know something? I wouldn't doubt that in the least. Now, do you use anything from honey? Do you like honey?
Oh yes, I absolutely love honey. I had strep throat a little while back, and every once in a while, I'd just have a teaspoon of honey. I would just get it down, and within 10 minutes, my throat would definitely start to feel better.
It's funny you mention that because you have a tendency with a sore throat to want to have something soothing and nice going down your throat.
Yeah, since honey, how honey is really sticky.
Yes.
When it goes down your throat, it sticks to the sides, so it will prevent any tickles, which could make you cough, which might make your throat hurt even more.
Well, that's very interesting. Now, have you decided? You're kind of young, but I'll ask you this. All grown-ups ask this question. Have you decided what you want to be when you grow up?
Kind of. I either want to be a polar bear conservationist, a surgeon, or I'll take after the business.
Well, let me tell you something. You're a very intelligent young woman, and I can see that the caring and empathy you have for animals, people, everything you do. And I can see you doing any one of those three things. And can I say something that I noticed about you? Because we all have our gifts. And I see that you have fabulous communication skills. That you are carrying on a conversation with me right now. And I could have you as a guest on. We could send your father right away. We don't need him here anymore. We can send him right back to the audience.
Go on, out, go.
Out, go, yes. But I can see you doing all those things. I'm very partial to polar bears myself. I have polar bear pins and things like that. And I advocate for people who have brain injury. And one of the little things I tell people when I'm advocating is that I turn into a mother polar bear if you don't treat people with disabilities or brain injury. A polar bear is a wonderful, wonderful animal.
But it can be very tough.
Yes, a mother polar bear, you can watch her from afar, you can watch her with beautiful, she's calm and everything, but don't go near her baby. And so, that's the case. So now while you're sitting on Daddy's lap, we have about probably 7 more minutes of our show right now, and I'm going to let you stay with your daddy. But what I'm going to ask him is if he wants to give us some information of, if anyone is interested in beekeeping or anything about bees, is there a way that they can reach you or find you to talk about bees or your products?
Absolutely. So we have a website. Our company is called Little Bee of Connecticut, and you can go to our website, www.littlebeeofct.com. And that's our website, or you can reach us via our email, which is littlebeeofct@gmail.com. And on our website, you can learn a little bit about us. You can learn about ways that you can help save the bees. We have some great information. There's a great 15-minute video on our website. The woman's name is Marla Spivak, and she is a professor, and she's one of the foremost authorities on beekeeping in the United States. And it's a great 15-minute video that explains everything about the importance of bees, and as well as the issues that are affecting bees right now. And you can learn some great information there. We also have some great information on there about the different plants and things that you can plant and ways that you can help protect the honeybee population. You can browse our store. You can see some of the items that we offer for sale. Everything is handmade by us. We do not make anything. We don't resell anything for anybody else. And there's also a contact form. So if anybody is interested in getting in touch with us about beekeeping or wants to learn a little bit about beekeeping, I'd be happy to talk to anyone about my own experiences, or I can give contact information about some of the beekeeping classes that I took that I found really helpful. I'd even be willing, we could talk about, possibly having, if they want to, see the bees, I could, possibly, let someone see them and just see if they'd be interested.
In other words, like a little first-hand experience about just being around it a bit.
Yep.
and getting a feel for if it's something for them. That's very good. So the bottom line is, if you're you said all they have to do is go online and now, I don't have computer lingo down good. So what I should say, you just go and Google Little Bee of Connecticut,
Yep,
and all your information will come up.
Yep, our website will come up, and you can just click on that, and we have links within our website for all the different ways you can get in touch with us.
Well, there you have it here, and actually, we actually have Little Bee with us.
Yep, this is Little Bee.
This is the inspiration. Little Bee sitting right here, Alexa, and I probably have a few more minutes. Anything else that we missed on Little Bee, or that we want to talk about? Would you like to tell us something about, we have Dad and we have Alexa. Alexa, would you like to say something about your mom? Just a little something? Not embarrass her now, but just a little something nice about your mom. I know she's part of this operation, and just like the worker bees, I'm sure that she contributes something to the whole operation.
Of course.
Yes. What would that be?
She helps my daddy and I with making the products, like our hand salve, salt scrubs, lip balm.
She's been very generous with donating her kitchen.
Kitchen.
During the research and development phase of our products, and we've taken over the kitchen table. So she's been wonderful in helping us with that development phase. So
Yes.
Thank you, Mommy.
Oh yes, thank you. And she, Mom's in the audience right now.
Yeah.
What's your mom's first name again?
Krista.
Krista. Krista's in the audience, and so we see here we have a woman's touch, which is always important, because we learned about the bees. Without a woman's touch, there would be no honey. So at this point, I think that I can sign off, if it's all right for my engineer there. I'm still learning how to be somebody that is a host of a show. So everybody, bear with me, and we'll get that done. And when I get the okay, what have I got there? I can't see the number, Robert. Hold on. 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes. That means I can actually look into the camera. And thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much,
Very
Kathy.
much. And thank you very much. And one last time, we will say it together. Little Bee of Connecticut. Good day.